Welcome back to the Bit by Bit podcast. In today's episode, I speak with Knut Svanholm. We had a long discussion both before and after the podcast, and I really enjoyed chatting with him. This episode was recorded 2.5 weeks ago, before all the craziness in the world, but I think it's more relevant than ever, and I think the ideas being discussed in this book are why we talk about these things, why we discuss the fragility in the current financial system, why we believe that sound money is important, and why hierarchical structures maybe are not the way forward. Anyway, as I say, I really enjoyed this, and I hope you do too.
Yeah, started recording.
All right, perfect. So we'll just jump in with an intro. Knut Svanholm, is that pronounced correctly? Knut Svanholm?
No, not really.
No, go on, tell me. All right, let me try again. So, Knut Svanholm, the author of Sovereignty Through Mathematics. If you can just introduce yourself a little bit and tell the listeners, what was it that made you stumble across Bitcoin? And then what was it that made you write this honestly awesome book? It is now the go-to for me. If someone asks, what is Bitcoin? How do I understand it? It is now the go-to book that I pass them on to because it's so concise. All the sort of ideas that we talk about on Bitcoin Twitter and all the things that run around my head all the time, just all were ticked off in this book. So what was it that made you find Bitcoin and what led you to write the book?
First of all, thanks a lot for your kind words. Well, I'm Knut Svanholm. I'm a Bitcoin enthusiast, I guess, and an author nowadays. But this is not my day job. I'm a crew manager for a shipping company. But I'm really into Bitcoin, and I use every spare minute I have to descend these rabbit holes and honey badgers' dens further. Yes, and I wrote the book, or how I stumbled upon Bitcoin. It's a combination of a curious mind and a boring situation, a boring ocean.
Okay.
sailing across the Atlantic.
Oh, guess. Wow. So you found it at sea.
I don't really know if this is a true story, but this is like the romantic version of it.
Okay.
I can't really recall a specific point in time, like a discovery that this is something I should try to wrap my head around more. But I was curious enough to take a university course online in Bitcoin and the now dreaded word blockchain technology.
So you took a course on, I guess, a blockchain technology course.
No, it was called digital currencies.
Okay.
A course in digital currencies, whatever that means, whatever currency means. But,
yes.
Yeah, and I found it really interesting, and I learned a lot. I liked the course. Andreas Antonopoulos was one of the teachers, and 1 hour sessions where he answered questions from all the participants. And each year there are more and more people enrolling to the course. So I guess he has to like keep it to an hour each lesson nowadays. But anyway, it was very interesting, and I didn't really know what to do with the knowledge I gained, except for stacking sats. Then one fine day at another boring job, I decided to start writing instead of just wasting away the day playing phone games. I started writing articles instead about this. And then one of the articles was called Bitcoiners, or like newcomers, you need to know what to do on August 17th. on the 17th of August, which was when the Bitcoin Cash fork happened.
Okay.
So I wrote an article about how important it was to actually own your own private keys when that date occurred. And that article really took off and got like 70,000 reads, something like that.
Wow, and that was the first one you wrote, was it?
No. I had been writing quite a few by then.
Okay.
But that one really took off, and I had another experience with like something going viral on the internet. We made a music video a couple of years back with my band, my rock band, which got promoted on the Pirate Base promo thing they had. They had like
really?
promo base, so they promoted local bands that they themselves liked.
Okay.
On occasion, and we were one of those bands, and that like gave us more than 100,000 YouTube views. So after having had those two experiences, I saw that there's like the internet isn't impossible to gain an audience is not an impossible task. There is actually a potential reader somewhere out there, and like I write for my own pleasure, but of course the whole thing gets fueled by the engagement of others, and like of course I appreciate that people read my stuff and like reading my stuff.
Absolutely. Well, it spurs you on, doesn't it? If you know that other people are reading what you have to say and they're interested with it, it definitely is going to help spur you on to do more. It's a nice feeling. Yeah,
definitely. And this is not the first book I wrote. I like compiled the articles into a book just to and turned it to a book on Amazon just to see how the process, what the process was like of publishing a book. And but then I had my name attached to that, and that is the only book you could find in my name. So I thought I'd better write a proper thing about this. So I have something to be a bit more proud of.
Leaving a legacy.
Like you don't want the wrong thing to be on top of the search engines, I guess. Or the search results. So I wrote another one, and I got some help from the Bitcoin community. A lot of help with the proofreading and the technical proofreading and everything. And after that, I had a product I was really proud of. So I brought a whole bunch to Riga, to the Baltic Honey Badger conference, and I handed out half of them and sold half of them. And now it lives its own life, it seems, the book. Now it has a life of its own. Yeah.
How did you find, I mean, I assume you came from a non-technical background into it. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I assume that was the case. Did you find writing the technical side of things took a long time to really be able to explain? Because I always find that's the hardest bit, and I feel you've explained it really, really clearly. Did that have input from other people, or was it just something you did all by yourself?
It had input from a couple of other people. Kalle Rosenbaum, for instance, who wrote Grokking Bitcoin. He helped me out a lot. But I wouldn't say I have no technical background at all. I've read quite a lot of maths in my past, and like I finished the first year of an engineering bachelor's degree before I quit that. So I have some technical background, and I've always been trying to stay updated on what's happening in the computer world. I had a Commodore 64 when I was a kid, and I started programming on that.
So you've always had an interest in it.
Yeah.
Okay, well that definitely helps, because I was the other way. I came from it with zero technical understanding, and that was the last thing to wrap my head around, and it was by far the most challenging thing to wrap my head around. So I guess we all come at it from different coming from different perspectives and different angles.
How long have you had the pod for?
A really short amount of time, 2019. It had happened because, I don't know, you maybe had a similar experience, but when you sort of wrap your head around this stuff and you understand how important this technology is and what it can do, all I wanted to do was talk to everyone about it all the time. And I was basically just becoming a badger. I was just going around annoying people, and no one cared about about it. So it's I don't know. I found it sort of in some ways quite frustrating, because I wanted, I felt, I can help people and I can explain this, and it's going to be really good. But then I didn't want to be just annoying everybody, but I wanted to talk about it. And I thought, well, all I can do is I can talk to people who have a similar interest, and I'll enjoy talking to them. And then if people listen and they find it interesting, then that's brilliant. And at least I don't have to go and annoy people in my normal life. I just be quiet in my normal life.
Seems like you found a way there. I can. The similarities there. It was so relieving to come to Riga and be in a. I'm usually not very comfortable in crowded rooms, but there it's instantly felt like I knew everybody, which I sort of did from Twitter.
Yes.
You knew that everyone in there had they were already over a certain intellectual capacity threshold.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know what you mean, and it's definitely that they have the intellectual capacity, and then it's also that they seem to have those shared beliefs. Well, one thing that I like is that people seem to take responsibility for themselves, and it's really refreshing that it's so different to what I experience in normal life. And then I meet Bitcoiners and they're like, well, if you want something done, do it yourself. It's really nice. It's refreshing.
Yeah. And I think there are misconceptions about Bitcoiners all being filthy rich, for instance, which
I'm dragging the others down.
Yeah, but there are a lot of people dragging the others down. I mean, it's like the thing that struck me was there's no social status or class that doesn't seem to matter at all to these people, which is really refreshing, and I think might be surprising to I think that might have been surprising to an outsider. Not very surprising to a Bitcoiner. I think the ideas are what's important, not
all of the bullshit in real life. Well, I say real life. In normal life, it's less real, but in normal life, it's materialistic, or it's appeal to authority, and what degree have you got, and all this sort of stuff. And then you meet Bitcoiners, and it isn't. It's like you say. It's how interesting are your ideas, and are you a good and fun person? And if you've got those things, then great. And it's so nice.
Yeah, really.
I heard Riga was awesome. I really would like to get out, because I've heard really good things.
Yeah, we're doing a thing there next year, a course for beginners. I don't know how confidential this is at this point in time, but there's a thing in the works between me and a couple of other Bitcoiners doing introduction courses for newbies the day before the conference.
Oh, nice.
And see if we can turn it into a concept which that you can bring to other conferences and stuff, which would be really nice. It would be nice if this lovely conference could be more popular among the normies in Riga at the time. like when we're there, we should like be more welcoming to like the people out.
It's hard though, isn't it? I mean, do you find that it's, you know, like I said before, and I really do mean this, you have distilled these ideas, the foundational ideas of Bitcoin so well, but explaining it to a normie in, you know, in a casual meeting, or, you know, in a 10 minutes, I've still not found a way to do it. I don't know, maybe you have.
No, we live in a world where everyone is brainwashed into not seeing certain truths, like the subjective theory of value. People on the telly go on and say that there is such a thing as intrinsic value all the time.
Yeah.
And there isn't. Like, value is a subjective thing, and the value of money might be an intersubjective thing between several brains at the same time, but it's still subjective and still not an objective truth.
Absolutely.
Neither
you explained it with the diving analogy. I thought was very good.
Oh yeah. The trapped under ice diver.
Yeah, so I thought that was really nice way of putting it, actually, because it explains it in a way that I think people would get their heads around, because a lot of the terminology that's used for normal people, it is like, you know, you hear all these words and you hear, you know, these talking heads on TV talking about intrinsic value, and they don't really think deeply about what that means. But like you say, things are valuable to different people depending on their conditions, and I think that explained it very nicely.
Yeah, and that's something I remember this puzzling me as a kid, that you could haggle for prices in certain places, but not in other places. Like I spent parts of my childhood in Africa, in Mozambique and in Tanzania, and you could always haggle about prices at the markets,
yes,
at a food market, and you could never do that here in Sweden, except for maybe when you were buying a guitar or something.
Okay.
Like the music stores, they had a haggling culture even here, but like and wrapping your head around why that is, and like that a price tag is just historical data and not an absolute truth. It's very hard. It's very hard since you, like, we act as if it was an absolute truth all the time. Like when we go to the grocery store and they tell us to pay a certain amount, and we do.
Yeah.
And some people have bonus checks and they cash them in, and some people have a bank card, like a credit card connected to the supermarket's own bank, and they get, or they're members. They get, like, so the cost can really vary. But what we don't see is, like, every cost could vary, and we could, like, bargain and haggle about everything.
Well, yeah, I think you can. It's just the social construct, isn't it? People would find it weird if you walked into a high street shop. But I bet if no one else was in there, and you're with the store manager, almost anywhere you can haggle.
Yeah, and people don't think about this. And this is part of why it's so hard to explain Bitcoin to people, because in order to understand Bitcoin, you need to understand money. And in order to understand money, you need to understand a lot of other basic things that are not taught in schools, like what value is.
Yeah.
So it's really hard.
you talked about that as well in the book, and I think from memory you'd said, you know, it's probably just something that's been overlooked in the school systems, and that I sort of feel like it maybe is a bit more sinister. I struggle to believe. Obviously, there's an element of just stupidity, and I definitely think that a lot of what goes on is just people not thinking and following the crowd. But I do think that it's so convenient that this that the inflation and the way that things are working serves very few people, and those few people make all the decisions. And I feel for them not to know that it benefits them, and I don't know. It feels like it feels a little bit like it's they obviously know, and they're just trying to breed cattle.
Yeah, I try really hard not to be a conspiracy theorist, but it is hard.
It is hard
to fight that. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I don't think there's anything wrong with thinking about these things, because I know people get upset about it and say, "Oh, don't be stupid. The people in power wouldn't be doing it for their own benefit." It's like, well, do you know how humans work? Do you have any idea? People do what's best for them.
The thing is, maybe the people at the very top know, but I think you don't have to go very, very far down the hierarchies in society to get people that are completely ignorant about these things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like the politicians, for instance, I think they have no idea what they're talking about.
Well, they're just puppets.
Yeah. But maybe the central bankers do. It's depressing either way.
Yeah, it is. It is depressing, but it's also quite exciting, because, you know, in a film where you have a bully and it's bullying someone, and then eventually that person gets their own back, and you feel, yes, this is the tides have turned. I do feel that the tides are going to turn. I feel really positive about it.
I always vouch for the villain when I'm watching a movie. That's the most important character.
Yeah.
Anyway, sinister or stupid, which is worse? I don't know.
Maybe a combination of the two.
Yeah. Does ambition and stupidity equal
politician?
I was trying to make a verb out of sinister. Sinisterity.
Yeah.
Is there such a word?
Well, there is now. Sinisterity. There you are.
I have to copyright that.
Yeah. Well, it's recorded. I can't steal it now, sadly.
Creative Commons.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, it's we'll probably never know, but it feels that way. And I don't know. Like you were saying, the security that it gives us, and the way that we can store our time, and all of these benefits, to me, feel inevitable. I sort of hesitate to say it, but it does feel inevitable, and it feels,
if it works.
And it is a big if, but it feels like the power shift is so huge that it is very difficult to predict quite what's going to happen on what time scale. But it's massive. It's just massive.
Yeah, it feels like we're just before the tipping point of everything. Yes, and that's not only with Bitcoin, but with AI and all this dystopian stuff happening everywhere. So social credit scores happening happening without us knowing everywhere, not only in China. Yeah.
It's creeping. Do you find it's sort of accelerating in Sweden? I mean, we certainly is in London.
Yeah, you have the whole Orwellian video surveillance thing there.
It's really bad. It's really bad. It makes me feel very, very uncomfortable.
No, of course. Should move to the countryside.
Well, I actually have, but I still have to go. I still have to go into London occasionally. It just feels horrible. It's not. It doesn't feel natural, and it doesn't make you feel more safe. You know, a lot of people say, "Oh, well, it's good because it's good for safety." It's like, no. It's not. It's not.
They should all read Orwell.
Yes. I know. It's surprising how many people just haven't, though. They know, like, if you say to people, do you know 1984? And they'll say, no. And you say, Big Brother? They go, yeah. It was a great TV show. Really enjoyed it. And you're like, oh, God. You've missed the point.
Yeah, it's hopeless. And, like, films like Brazil, for instance, it's a very good prediction of what the British society turned into.
I haven't seen that one. Did you say Brazil?
Yeah, Terry Gilliam film.
I'm going to write that down. I'll watch it.
Very inspired by 1984.
Right.
It's about
Okay.
A very bureaucratic society.
Right. I have to watch that.
Yeah, you should.
It's sent shivers down my spine. 1984. It felt so close to home that almost as if Orwell had a crystal ball. That's how it felt.
Yeah.
It was like wow, Orwell knew.
Yeah, it was a bright guy. Animal Farm is great as well.
That's on my reading list. I haven't got through to that one yet.
Oh.
But what an incredible guy. I'd love to be able to say, like, to just sit in a room and chat to him and say, you know, what was going through your head, and like, is this how you were thinking things were going to play out?
Yeah, I always say that you only need to read 2 books to explain the entire world or human society at large, and that is 1984 and The Emperor's New Clothes by Hans Christian Andersen.
Yes.
If you read those 2, you can explain everything from there. You can deduct everything in society from those 2 books.
Yeah, I agree.
And if you have to read a 3rd book, go for Human Action by Ludwig von Mises.
Yes. Yeah. I'm working my way through it. I work my way through a lot of these with audiobooks. In fact, I actually had a bone to pick with you because I was listening to your book. I went through it in a day, and I had a long drive, and I pulled over on the side of the road, got my phone out, and stacked sats on 4 separate occasions because of your book. And because of that, rice and bean. It's rice and beans. It's rice and beans for the next couple of weeks.
So my fiendish little plan of trying to make people put more money into Bitcoin in order to make it go up. It works.
It worked. I stacked more sats. I stacked more sats that day than I had in about 2 months.
Oh, no. You're making the hair stand on my arms here.
There was just a few bits in that. The bits where you were talking about the fact that borders are basically irrelevant. It really resonated. I was like, this is something that.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, no, I mean that was one of them. It was the borders part, and the other part that really made me pull over and stack sats was the fact that sociopaths are drawn into politics and these sort of things, and it literally, I went, yeah, that's absolutely right. I'm going to pull over now. I'm going to fucking stack some sats because I'm not having these bastards run the world anymore. Right, pull over.
Oh, it's so good to hear this.
Yeah.
Speaking about the borders there that's one of the rabbit holes that is most fascinating to me, and like what the concept of information literally being valuable, what that does to like how we think of ownership, and like if there's really this rabbit hole is so deep. Let me try to dive into what my thoughts are around this. I went into this with Daniel Price quite a bit about nation states acquiring Bitcoin, and then you start thinking about how can a nation state own Bitcoin? Who is going to be responsible for the private keys? Is there going to be multi-sig solutions? Will they have like two big red keys that they have to turn at the same time to send the Bitcoins away in some nuclear warhead bunkers? And all these things start to pop into your head, and this rabbit hole seems limitless, because like what the conclusion, the inevitable conclusion of like what ownership is in the Bitcoin world is like there is no such thing as a collective ownership. Ownership is always personal. Even if you have a multi-sig setup, your personal ownership of that part of the multi-sig is worth something. So that like ownership can only be personal, which like obsoletes the nation state in an entirely different angle than the borders obsolete angle. So like, and the next thing that pops into mind then is like, has ownership ever been a collective thing? Is it possible at all to own things collectively? And with the more you think about it, the more it seems like it isn't possible, because there's always a guy on top of every hierarchical structure we have who makes the decisions for everyone else in that hierarchical structure. So ownership is an entirely personal thing, and it has always been. The valuable things have always been very confiscatable, though. And this is what Bitcoin changes, because now all of a sudden you can't confiscate stuff, and you can't even know that people have it. So this turns everything
Bitcoin fixes
down.
this.
Yeah, and not only fixes it, but turns it on its head, and like obsoletes everything we thought we knew. And like,
well, it's unimaginable, actually. I would say that we can imagine this because we live on Bitcoin Twitter and are obsessed with this sort of stuff. For someone who's not involved in this, it is unthinkable. If you talk about
for us, I think we've only barely scratched the surface of the implications of this thing, because it turns everything on its head. Like, if we can't own anything collectively any longer, everything in society is like we'll have to figure out other ways of doing things. I believe them to be better ways, since they're based on a truly free market, and not the like charade of a free market that we have right now, like socialism dressed up as a free market, which is everywhere. But trying to convince people about this is like there are so many barriers to this.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting what you're saying about how does a government or state have ownership, and I think that's a really good point, because
any entity bigger than one individual, larger,
because you either have to have it split so that nobody owns it without the other people, or it has to be, like you say, down to one person. So it's like you say, you can only actually own something if it is one. And that throws some serious problems into the way that they've set up their little pyramid. And
and every pyramid.
Yeah, like you say, we certainly haven't scratched the surface, and the implications are going to be just, well, we don't know, but I think do you have some sort of prediction of how this might play out?
Yeah, I think there will be a limit to how big an organization can get. And I think this has something to do with Dunbar's number, if you're familiar with that.
Yeah, 150.
Something like that. And after that, you can't know or therefore trust everyone in an organization. So after that, like with Bitcoin, when everything is personal, humans will once again have a hard time forming groups of more than 150 people, which is, by the way, is true for every other primate. We are the only primate that, or mammal, but maybe not mammal, but the only primate that forms in groups of more than 150 individuals. Yes, I've written some about this in the follow-up to the book. I'm thinking a lot about it because, like, this is humanity's greatest strength and greatest self-destructive thing at the same time, I think, because our ability to imagine that intersubjective things are as good as objective truths. Make any sense? Like religions or nation states, we can organize ourselves in vast numbers because we believe the same thing. We rally under the same flag or something like that.
Yeah, we can create something that is an idea. We can scale because of language and being able to sort of paint an idea that's, like you say, like religion and the idea of a nation is an idea. It's not reality. We're not any different. No. There's no biological difference. It's a man-made construct which feels quite outdated, really. But yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, there's objective reality, there's subjective values, and there's intersubjective truths about that we either believe in or not, and they are shaking at their very foundations right now. The nation states, world religions, and money itself, they're all
they're being questioned.
They're all being questioned, and like the bigger they get and the more bureaucratic and sinister they get, like the EU, for instance, or China or the US, the more questionable they become, and people are starting to see through the veil and like exposing the truth that the emperor really has no clothes on. That's the thing.
He has no clothes on, and he's fuck ugly. Really, very, very ugly underneath. Yeah. The more you look.
Yes, not on the underneath, but on the outside as well.
Yeah.
Regardless of if you're thinking of Winnie the Pooh or like that fake suntan or yellow top.
I'm thinking about all of them. About all of them. And it's one thing that's really fascinated me, like we were saying, sort of going back to this fact that, Bitcoiners can all meet and have a pleasant conversation. Even if we disagree on certain things, it seems that most people can communicate and get along with each other. And I find that most people in life can, like, most of the barriers that are put up and the things that people argue about seem to be not just man-made but media-made, and a lot of these arguments that are, about the youths and the boomers and this country and that country and the left and the right, and actually we have much more in common with each other than we do that separates us. And it seems that all that media and government really try to do is just drive a wedge, and it feels to me that it's probably because they know that if they don't drive that wedge, people will realize that actually we are much more powerful together, and maybe that the internet is breaking those barriers because now we have access to all this information, and it seems like it's accelerating.
Yeah, definitely. The internet is like that. so many things got exposed when the internet happened. So many lies were exposed, and as a species, we're just about to wake up from all these spells we've been under, I believe. But it will take a while. It will.
Sadly,
and it might be violent. Yeah.
I think almost definitely it will be. I think that's why we have all the preppers and all that, and all the preppers on Twitter. But I always like to think about the future. I think it's really exciting. Sort of a lot of my time is spent thinking about. Do you have a sort of, if I said to you, right, 25 years from now, where are we? What's going on? Or do you have two? It's like, one, we're all dead. Two.
Oh, you want me to dig myself a hole here?
Oh, I dig myself them all the time. It's fine. I've got lots of spades here. We can dig ourselves out.
Yeah.
Or dig deeper.
Well, I try to be optimistic about the future, because regardless of all the negative stuff that is happening, and the most things in the world are getting better. And I really believe that. I believe Hans Rosling and Steven Pinker, when they show graphs of how everything is, the world is a better place for most people on the planet, and I believe these trends will continue in one way or another. It will be harder for authoritarian regimes to keep on doing what they're doing, just because they're exposed a lot earlier, and atrocities are exposed, and people have better tools for separating themselves from or emancipating themselves, if you will. There are more and more tools of getting out of whatever narrative the government or the media tells you to live in. And Bitcoin, I believe, is the ultimate tool for this. Maybe not it still has some privacy issues and maybe some fungibility issues, but in the long run, I think that the big benefit of this tool is not maybe not the technology itself at this stage, because you're better off if you're not using it. You're off the radar, and hodling is the best thing to do with it anyway. But the thing that it does to your mind, and the thing that you start thinking about the world in other ways. Yeah, and you apply these time preference thoughts into everything else you do in life as well. And it alters you more than you can alter it, as the Gigi says. And that is really powerful in itself. It makes people think.
It's crazy, isn't it? Have you found change within yourself since you found Bitcoin in terms of your time preference?
Yeah, definitely. I don't really like the terms high and low time preference, because I have a difficulty remembering which one is which.
Yeah, it took me ages. It took me ages to do the same. After about 3 reads of the Bitcoin Standard, I was like, okay, yeah, no, it's But
I prefer long or short time preference,
yeah,
or
yeah, that makes more sense, I think. Yeah. But it's like you say, it's so powerful, and it's something that seems not out of place, but sort of, it seems to be an idea that was almost lost, and everyone was living in the future in terms of their finances, and eating shit and spending money on shit and talking shit and just borrowing to buy more shit. And now that you have this sound money, it does seem that certainly it sounds like for you and definitely for me as well. I'm thinking all the time, whatever I'm spending, I'm thinking, or not even spending, whatever I'm doing, I'm thinking, is this the best for your future self? Because it matters.
Yeah, and this this is something that you will people tell me about what if Bitcoin doesn't work and if it goes to zero and if you were wrong and all these things, which I admit there's some there is a small chance that we are or a small risk that we are wrong about it and that it will never take off and all these things. But I don't really mind because it's these ideas has made me a better thinker, and I believe I'd like to think that I'm a better person because of it. Might sound like a grandiose thing to say, but I would do it all again if I like. Yeah.
Even if it were, I'm with you there. People have said the same to me. Oh, what if it all, you're spending all your time and all your money and everything you're doing is on Bitcoin now. And I say, well, if I'm wrong, or if even if I'm not wrong and there's a catastrophic bug or there's some failure, I can honestly say that I'm doing something I believe in and I'm supporting something I believe is better for civilization. And if I'm to become a father and pass this world on to future generations, I want to do what I think's best. And I don't think it's best to be popping bottles in a club and spending money on a flash car and wasting money on expensive clothes to show off in front of other people our stack sats. Because I think I honestly think it make the world a better place. And like you say, if we're wrong, at least we tried. At least we're trying to do what we believe in.
Yeah, and we learned a lot from it. We learned how to prioritize and how to question stuff. It makes you question everything. And one of this, I've been talking about this before, but on other pods. But I went to a crypto conference once, and I was about the only Bitcoiner there.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, and the amount of insincerity and the amount of snake oil salesmen and charlatans in the world is truly depressing, because even and the amount of gullible people, they're everywhere. The scammers and the gullible people. And so many of us fall for all these, and it sort of explains everything as well, because we've all been scammed by nation states and big hierarchical things that have governed us for centuries. But when you see it firsthand, the scammers and all their followers, it's really it's back to Monty Python again and Life of Brian for me. Think for yourselves. You're all individuals. You're all different.
Well, yeah, and like you said about being fooled, there was a part in your book as well where you were talking about, the fact that you're paying taxes is paying the interest for your governments, and they're paying that to banks. And when you really think about that, people say, oh, well, you've got to have taxes, otherwise who's going to build the roads, and all that stupid argument.
Yeah.
And if you say to them, well, no, you're paying interest and it has to be paid by somebody, and the old argument of well, it's just money we owe to ourselves. It's well, who's ourselves? It's a future generation. So it's such a trickery that once you open your eyes to it, for me, it's impossible to close them again.
It's like we're staging a civil war for our offspring. Worthless.
Yeah, and you said you were putting the kids to bed before we spoke, so you're obviously, I assume, thinking the same way of you've got to look out for your children, and you're doing what you think is right. That's the way.
Yeah, and it's so depressing because we were taught in school about every human being's equal value all the time. And no one questioned this, that this was the right philosophy. And like, of course, you should respect human life and all that, but no one ever questioned like the word value. What is value? And in socialist Sweden, the emphasis was like everyone should have the same chance of getting somewhere in life, and like equality of opportunity, which is a nice thought in a way, but
or a quality of outcome. That's the best one.
That's the thing is they always confuse the two, don't they?
Yes, they do.
But the thing is, even making your parents' generation pay so much taxes that they never get the chance to get anywhere in life, so that everyone can start at zero. It's not a very, if you're not able to store wealth through generations, it's like what are your incentives to really take care of your kids and taking care of your family if you're gonna get robbed of all of it anyway when you die? Why bother?
Yeah.
And like this fucks up the incentives for parenting in general. I think that like
it destroys families. I'm 100% with you, and it's. I think you're touching on a really important point there, which is, if you take out that, and that's something that has happened for tens of thousands of years, and that the parents would look after the children, and then eventually the children would look after the parents. But not only if the value's being stolen, but if people are relying on governments for their health and their welfare and for everything slowly but surely being outsourced to the government, it breaks down that family bond. And that's all at the end of the day. Without that, what's the point?
Yeah. And what these social security safety nets and social benefits are doing, and that depriving the people of the ability to learn from their own mistakes. And if you do that, people will never act responsibly. If you deprive them of the opportunity to have skin in the game in whatever they do, like you take that away and they'd never learn anything. And there are other ways, and like there are so many innovations for financing stuff nowadays, like crowdfunding, for instance, that could be used to such a much larger extent, like for instead as a substitute for taxes.
Yeah,
crowdfund everything. I mean,
absolutely.
And I really believe that humans are hardwired to cooperate, and this is what, like the first chapter of my book, Everything a Trade. Like this is what we interact voluntarily. That's a trade, and that's commerce, and it's cooperative rather than coercive. And I believe coercion should be minimized and cooperation should be maximized in a society.
And like, I think really what you're getting at there is that all interaction is value exchange, and effectively all value exchange is a form of speech. And by restricting that value exchange and restricting speech, it can only have a negative effect on society.
Yeah, and I believe no society has ever had free speech, freedom of speech, true freedom of speech. It's never existed.
No.
Because speech includes money.
Yeah, it's a massive part of it. Huge part of it.
The most important part of it.
Well, you exactly, by putting your money behind something and backing it, you are speaking and telling someone that you agree with it or you don't agree with it, and you want it to happen or you don't want it to happen. And I think that's missed. I think just because of the wording, maybe people struggle to wrap their head around that. But it's worrying.
Appreciation. That's what it is. Money is just appreciating the other person's efforts.
You said you'd listened to a lot of Andreas Antonopoulos when you first started with your course. There's a couple of talks that he's done about money as speech and about micro payments on the Lightning Network and how you can say whatever you want to whatever degree with your money and that there's no barriers if we can get this right. And that's something that keeps me up at night thinking about it. Do you have a view on, I don't know whether you've seen the one I'm talking about, but there's a few that he's done, but is it something? One? No, it's quite old actually. Must be 2 or 3 years old now. I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, but he's talking about micro payments and that you can streaming money and all that. That's it. Stuff. That's it. Yeah. That really blows my mind.
Yeah, I've seen those and that blew my mind at the time as well. They really did. But I've not been following Andreas that much lately.
He's gone a bit shitcoiny, hasn't he?
Yeah, I hate to talk down on the guy.
Oh, no, I mean, he's honestly, whether he's gone shitcoiny or not, genuinely, without watching his videos right at the beginning, I would not have wrapped my head around this. I really don't think I would have. And I have unbelievable amount of respect.
Yeah.
But it does worry me.
That's the thing. Yeah, it worries everyone, I think, in the community because he has done so much for so many people in this community. So it's like a taboo to criticize him.
Yeah, but I don't understand what he's talking about with Ethereum, though. I just know that this guy is smart and I believe he sees value in Ethereum. I cannot see it myself. But sometimes I think, well, he's so smart and he was so, he's helped you get through all this stuff. What is he seeing that you're not seeing? Or is there a financial incentive? And I don't know. I can't get my head around it. So I've just chosen to accept that, well, he sees something I don't. He still sees value in Bitcoin and he's been incredibly useful and I have the respect for him. But I can't get on board with it. I just think Ethereum is bullshit.
Yeah, I totally agree. But
yeah, sorry, I didn't pull any punches there, but
no, but no, and you shouldn't. I just wish we were talking about there are some other Bitcoin OGs that have done far worse things than Andreas ever did.
Trace.
Yeah, he dug himself a hole, didn't he?
Oh, that was bad. God. That was bad. Do you know what was weird though? The first, I don't know if you ever watched this. There was a show, documentary, which he was in years and years and years ago, and it was
Roger Ver, right?
Roger Ver was in it, and so was what's his name, who did Shapeshift and all of those sort of ones.
Yeah, Eric Voorhees. Yeah.
Eric Voorhees, and I watched it. This is before I'd got involved with Bitcoin, and I remember watching it. And there's a part where Trace is sat in an office and he's talking about trade with Africa, and there's a backdrop behind him of I think a harbour or something, and he's talking, and I remember distinctly thinking, what a cock. I just remember thinking, I just thought he seems like he's a cock, and then I saw him. About a year and a half later, when I was really falling down the rabbit hole, and he was talking a lot of sense, and a lot of what he was saying was really logical and smart, but I couldn't help thinking, I thought, I feel that he likes himself too much for me to like him. And when I first started this podcast, I sent out invitations to everyone that I thought, I send out invitations to everyone that I like and respect and that I think that they have good ideas. And he was the one where I stopped and I thought, he talks a lot of sense, but I think he's a cock. And it turns out that he was. So, Trace, if you're listening, which you're obviously not, but you're a cock. Sorry.
You're a cock.
Have you watched The Office?
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. Did you watch the English and the American version, or just one?
English. I tried to watch the American one, but no.
Yeah, me too. I watched the English one so many times. I absolutely love it. And then I tried the American and I just thought, I can't. It's just nowhere near as good. I love the English one.
It's almost hard to watch though, isn't it?
Yes.
I know a lot of people, including my wife, that doesn't like it at all just because it's so hard to watch. Like, she feels embarrassed watching it.
It's cringeworthy.
Yeah, it is. But it's
so clever. There was on the on the podcast you did with Daniel, he always asks at the end if you could speak to one person and talk to them about Bitcoin and make them understand, who would it be? Mine is always Ricky Gervais.
Oh yeah,
he would be the person. And he lives not far from me. And I always think, if I bump into him, I would never normally speak to a celebrity or try and annoy them in their day. But I would love to talk to Ricky about this stuff.
Yeah. He would be but he's sort of already on our side, isn't he?
Freedom of speech, big time.
Yeah, he is. But he's sort of left-leaning in other issues, though. But
he is.
I guess he's. But he's got a heart and he's got a brain, definitely.
Oh yeah, he's switched on.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he would be a great spokesperson. The first
absolutely.
guy that came to mind when you said that now, like who would be the first one? Can you guess who came to what name popped up in my head?
Go on, tell me. I can't.
Darth Vader.
Darth Vader.
Perfect spokesperson.
He'd be a good one to have on your side.
Yeah.
Why Darth Vader then?
I don't know. It just popped into my head.
Popped into my head.
Who would be the person? Darth Vader.
Darth Vader.
Maybe because his name rolls off the tongue so nicely in the British accent. Darth Vader.
Darth Vader. He would be definitely a good one to have on that side.
They use credits in space as well, though.
Yeah, space credits. I think it's going to go that way. I listen to all these crazy podcasts talking about it and into having Bitcoin in space and how that would work and all the sort of how it would and wouldn't work and would you have to have different chains and all this. And the sad thing is that I just see that as a definite reality that it is going to be intergalactic money and that we are going to eventually sort of leave this earth and start spreading and lurking around space and that it's probably going to be Bitcoin.
Not in our lifetimes.
No, not in our lifetime, unless we can somehow sort out this aging problem, which they seem to get closer to.
Oh yeah, that problem.
Yeah, it's. I've sort of accepted that it's probably going to be my generation are going to die and my kids' generation are going to die, but the one after that, maybe they might be able to extend their life to quite a significant amount, but I've accepted that I will just be dying.
The flip side of that coin is like they're all going to die tragically in an accident someday then.
Yeah, that's true.
The longer the lifespan, the higher the likelihood of that. That goes towards infinity.
That's true. And isn't it true that eventually atoms are going to rip themselves apart in a certain amount of time? I was talking to someone recently. I was like, oh, well, in theory, we can live forever because we can just basically like have robotic bodies and we can upload our consciousness and then effectively we can live forever and download ourselves into other bodies. And he was like, no, because atoms will rip themselves apart and then effectively you will die anyway. So you will die eventually. And I was like, oh, okay, it's good to know.
Yeah, but isn't the sun like eating the earth way before atoms start ripping themselves apart?
Oh, maybe my physics knowledge is poor. I just one of my mates is a physics teacher, so I always ask him weird questions, and he will always answer with no, you will. Whatever I come up with, no, you will die. You will die. I'm like, oh, okay, all right then. I just want to be immortal. Yeah.
Yes, that's so much to ask for.
Yeah.
Please. This is something I can work with.
I just want to live forever and be able to store my energy and time in a currency that doesn't devalue. That's all I want from life, and I'm halfway there.
I like the thought of using Bitcoin to knight your children, like to pass wealth through 5 generations. It's like you can time lock them. So like,
is this something you'll consider, or?
I imagine time locking a part of them. So like, here you can inherit this, but you have to leave behind this amount to the next generation, and then like have a halving schedule or something. So for each generation will only need half the amount of Bitcoin anyway. So you could like do this as a forever thing. If you like program a time lock thing to a halving into that for each generation after yourself, you can secure the wealth of all your children for all generations to come.
That's actually a very reasonable. That actually makes a lot of sense. Maybe that's something that we need to propose to the sort of financial planners of this world.
Yeah, like
and like you said, it's technically possible. I mean, and logically, it makes sense.
And we should call it like a regression theorem or something like that.
Oh, that sounds good. Yeah,
a fancy name.
I always like the one that Andreas comes up with. It's a geometrically declining supply function. It always sounds posh. Whenever people ask, I'll be like, oh yeah, well it works on a geometrically declining supply function. They're like, what does that mean? I'll be like, well, it halves every 4 years. It gets more valuable, basically, more scarce. It sounds good though.
That's a good one. But I don't think I had that thought before, but if the halving does what it does to Bitcoin and the value of Bitcoin as of now, and if it continues to do what we all think it will, like number go up, you could apply exactly the same thing to your personal wealth and to the generations after you. So you spend half of your Bitcoins yourself. You leave half to coming generations, and each generation will have to do the same thing.
Okay, the only flaw I
program that into the whole thing.
The only problem I can see is if you only had one child and that child couldn't have another child, maybe 2-3 generations down the line, what happens? Is it just coin burn? Is it just just goes? Okay, that's fair enough. You just say that goes to the community. That's coin burn.
Yeah. Precisely. You will. You will donate the value of those coins to the rest of the community by increasing the scarcity.
Okay. Yeah, I can get on board with that. I haven't got kids yet, but that's you little bastards. Just know that this is what's happening. You're not getting my money. You're going to have to wait. You get a percentage, and you've got to breed. And if you don't breed, you're not getting it.
Yeah, you could. It is interesting thinking about these things, though, because it's like you say, that's really sensible, and that and we're talking about a very far out idea. Like it's crazy
speculation
that it's completely crazy,
we're talking about it like it's a reality already, which
it is crazy, but it is also logical.
Yeah.
Something can be crazy but logical at the same time, and I believe that it is. I think that a lot of the ideas that are talked about are crazy. A lot of what we talk about on Twitter is crazy, but I think it's less crazy than what's accepted as a norm in society in most cases.
Yeah.
Citadels and all these sort of things that are crazy ideas, really, when you break them down, are logical.
Yeah.
So
which
it's
is far less crazy than most things out there. Like there's so many ridiculous things that people believe in.
If we are right, and let's say that the S2F model holds true, and
you mean a plan B model?
The plan B model holds true, or something similar.
I have an issue with that though, because
go on.
It's not. That's not what Austrian economics teaches you. That it's not something you can do like that. Like
to model things.
To model an economic prediction like that. It's not really. I'm not a big fan of it because I don't really believe that you can. That it's that simple. I think hyper-Bitcoinization is more plausible than that model in a way.
I think that Nassim Taleb has a big problem with models, and I've read his books, and I agree with what he says in those. Have you read Fooled by Randomness or The Black Swan or Skin in the Game? Yeah, Taleb.
I read Skin in the Game.
Yeah. So he talks.
I really like it.
It's brilliant, and his other two are absolutely fantastic books. And he says you can't model these things, and I think, like what you're saying, you can't model because you can't predict human behavior.
No.
And
exactly.
Although I agree with that, the numbers that Plan B is talking about do roughly align with, if you take gold's value, if you take a percentage of property value, if you take a percentage of the stock market value, and if you take if it is this black hole that sucks in value, where we are allocating capital into say property and these things that are sat vacant, or they're not actually yielding what they should be yielding, then it would make more sense to allocate your capital to something that is completely liquid and that stores value better over time. And if that is to happen, the numbers he's talking about do seem logical. Whether they follow the exact line that he's predicting, I probably agree with you. I think that that's fairly unlikely. But say we hit the numbers that he's talking about, whether they follow the line or not, where do you want your citadel to be? Are you staying in Sweden, or are you going to a Caribbean island?
I'm not staying in Sweden, that's for sure. It's too dark here.
And cold.
I've always been, I've already been smitten by a life in a less dark place than this. I was sailing around in warmer places for quite a lot of years, and I sort of miss the sun.
Sort of Asia or Caribbean, or whereabouts did you enjoy the most?
Where I would put my citadel, I don't really know. Wherever the other Bitcoiners are, I guess. Or I think Bitcoiners the citadels are quite far ahead in the future if you believe in them. But I think Bitcoiners will start to move around the globe to places and jurisdictions where they can be themselves.
Yes.
Portugal and Japan, for instance.
These seem to be favored.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the idea personally of like somewhere maybe off the coast of Thailand, Langkawi, that sort of area, or Barbados, around that sort of area, somewhere warm and tropical. I like the idea that enough Bitcoiners will have enough land that we can all sort of just phone each other up and be like, look, can I just moor my boat off the coast of your island? Do you want to come chill and just chat some shit and watch, read some books and watch some interesting movies and have a good fry up and eat some steak? That's what I'm hoping.
This is the thing, though. Like, I think about this a lot. If I were to end up in a situation in life where I could basically buy everything I ever wanted, and I financially independent, or whatever you may call it, what would I do with my time? And like, how would I spend my days, and how long would it take before I drank myself to death or whatever? Like,
because you don't want to get bored.
Would you procrastinate it all away, or would you be creative, or would you build something? Or like, what's the point of building a business if you're already financially independent and stuff like that? But
I guess some things are built out of love, aren't they? Some things are built out of passion and love, and
I hope that that's what I would do, like build things out of passion and love, like make music and write books, I guess.
Well, I don't think there's a better thing to spend your time with than, music and art. I can't think of a better way to spend time.
No, not really. Not if you have an seemingly unlimited amount of time. Time is always limited, but anyway.
And money. That's the problem. Yeah. I work as an artist, but I have to do other work because it doesn't make enough money. If I had all the money in the world, I'd just paint all day, every day. Paint and maybe do a bit of diving or something. But, it's working as an artist, whether it's musician or painting or writing, or it's hard.
Yeah. Anyway, think about that stock to flow model. I have a theory about an always up point in the Bitcoin price, which is like, is there such a point or not? Which is where the Bitcoin block subsidy is when it's low enough, and like when there are enough hodlers of last resort, and there will be a point in time when Bitcoins will be so hard to come by that they can't lose value. We can look at a point in time where there will be only one Satoshi left because all the others have been lost somehow. Eventually that point will happen, even though it could take hundreds of thousands of years.
Yeah.
Or even millions of years.
Well, I just lost all of mine in a boating accident, so
I'm so sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it was just tragic. Absolutely tragic.
It always is. I just put that in my Twitter profile, boating accident captain.
You have a better excuse. You actually did some sailing. I live near a river, exactly. So I'll just use that.
Yeah. You can lose them in the river.
Yeah.
The thing is, this point where the price just can't go down because they're scarce enough and the demand is high enough. It's somewhere between now and there's only one Satoshi left point. There is a point where the price can't go down, denominated in another currency like the US dollar. And when does that happen? Is that 100 years from now, or like 1,000 years from now, or a couple of months from now?
Well, I guess we will never know, but I actually think it's going to be a long time.
Yeah, but
I think it's
the thing is, it doesn't need to be where everyone like for everyone to start acting like that point has already, that this thought just needs to get into the collective mind of all Bitcoiners. Like that we need more hodlers of last resort. And after that, like say that all the Bitcoins that were already in circulation started to or stopped circulating. Like everything that had already been mined was people just started hodling it like crazy, like never selling. Then these, like the halving is what is it, 75 days away, something like that.
Something, yeah, close to that.
And after that, we'll get 6.5 new Bitcoin for the entire world to share every 10 minutes, which is not a lot.
No.
And like,
not if I keep listening to your book. I'm going to listen again tomorrow. I'm going to clean up all the block subsidy.
Yeah, but with enough demand, this point is not theoretical anymore, and the price can only go up from there, because once you believe in hodling, and it, like, even if you believe in hodling 99% of your Bitcoin, something like that, if you're enough of a believer in hodling, and if enough people are that, this point is inevitable, and it will happen. The price cannot go down once we're past that point.
Yeah, once you build a base of hodlers of last resort, and we are building that base, and it is less coins are moving over time and less are being mined over time, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, it seems like that point is very far away, since the price goes up and down like crazy still, but it might not be. It might just be a couple of months away, or even weeks. You never know at any certain point, at any specific point in time, how far away that point is. And this is so fascinating. I can't stop thinking about these things.
It's, well, yeah. It is sort of, it consumes your mind, doesn't it? Because it's not just about if number goes up and people stop moving them. It's not just we all get filthy rich and we all sit on a Caribbean island and paint and write. It's actually that the world dramatically changes, and being part of it and watching it it's just fascinating. There's no wonder we can't get it out of our heads.
Yeah, the only thing more fascinating than number go up is number doesn't go up, which is the Bitcoin.
That is fascinating.
Schedule.
Yeah,
I must remember that. I should tweet that probably.
Yeah, or next book. Next book. When's the next book out? Do we have a sort of rough book schedule, halving schedule?
I'm happy to say that I'm in the proofreading phase of it. So
excellent.
Sometime this year, I think I can promise that.
Excellent. Well, I'll be straight on to that. And I will say to all my listeners, anyone now who is listening to this, first of all, go now and buy Sovereignty Through Mathematics. And as soon as you've done that, get on. Is there a list waiting for your next book?
No.
Right. As soon as there is a list, I'm going to share that out in the show notes and all over Twitter. And you go and buy that as well. And then listen, and 4 times through it, you stack sats, and then you hodl and you write a will and make sure that your children only get a percentage and that halves over every generation, and just take the advice. That's the best advice I can give in life, I'm afraid, is just buy that book, read it or listen to it, and wait for the next one.
Thank you for those kind words.
Anyway, all right, well, listen.
I'm tweeting this right now about number doesn't go up, by the way.
Excellent. Well, listen, like I say, I don't want to keep you too long, and I think this has been brilliant for any of the listeners. I'm going to link all of this, all of the information for your book and where to download it and where to buy it in the show notes. And do you have any parting words of wisdom, anything you'd like to say to the listeners?
Life is too important to be taken seriously.
I like that. I like that.
Oscar Wilde. It's not me, it's Oscar Wilde.
I'm just writing that down. He went to prison just about a couple of miles away from me.
Oh.
Yeah. Good old Oscar. Right, very wise words. And again, thank you very much for coming on. And thank you for writing the book. And thank you for giving me something. I'm really sorry, Safe Dean, but Bitcoin Standard is no longer the #1 book that I pass out to newbies. It's now number 2. It is. It's now number 2. And
it's not number 2. It's very good.
It's an absolutely world-class book. However, it is the second book that is now suggested. Yours is the first. That is the second. So, Safe, I'm really sorry, but it is now the second book that is suggested. All right. I will, we'll end the recording there. But yeah, thank you again for coming on. I've really, really enjoyed chatting to you. And hopefully we'll speak again soon when the next book comes out.
Yeah, looking forward to that. And
fantastic.
Thanks for having me on.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
All right.
The same.
All right. Speak soon.